It appears we're streaming now, Jerry. We're live on YouTube. I took today off. I really did need to rest today, and this is my third day off this year. And tomorrow we'll be back at it. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves on this fine afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not enjoying myself. No, I am sort of ish, kind of. It's a magnificent thing what we're doing here. You know, it really is. Oh shit! It was working. Son of a bitch. Wow, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? Had my protein shake. On my day off, I normally when I get home, I eat a bowl of rice with protein powder and a scoop of dextrose. But on my day off, I just do a protein shake instead. That way, I'm at like I probably should be eating more. Really, honestly, probably really honestly, I probably should definitely eat some more. I'm kind of groggy today, so what is going on now? Oh joy, bum rushed. I need more water too. Here's the thing, man. At the end of the day, when I was younger, I remember what it was like to be deaf. Really, like not necessarily as talented, but like I remember like everybody like, how do you not see these things for what they are, right? And just kind of like going through life, not realizing, kind of like do 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 do, you know, not in like a, I don't know what you call it, just sheer determination, right? Like no distractions, kind of just like just heads at it, right? Like head down, fucking barreling towards it, right? And kind of like people being like, it took years. It took years for us to get your attention. You know what I mean? It really did. It took forever for me to go like, oh, I guess it does make sense, right? Like no one really tried to tell me. You know what I mean? No one really tried to like tell me anything really when I was younger, like 2017, 2018 or whatever. But like you should have been able to draw the conclusion, right? At least at some point in time, right? I never did though, you know. And I feel like, you know what I mean? I think this is a good thing though, really, to just be determined, you know what I mean? Regardless of what reason why, just do your thing, you know? 'Cause like I've tried, you know, really hard to try and to let Def know like what he's built is so special that it's ridiculous, right? And he doesn't. I don't think he. I mean, I say, man, I don't know. He either does or I guess he gets it or he just doesn't care. I mean, I don't know. I really have no clue what to say about the shit, really. But I remember what it was like to be like that. You know what I mean? At some point in time in my life, where like people are like, no, you don't quite get it, you know, or people try to like, you know, this stuff doesn't just happen to everybody, kind of thing, right? The good, you know, the things you would consider that were good in my life, not the shit that was terrible, but the things that you would consider to be good, you know, overall good things, right? Like yeah, this sort of thing doesn't just happen to everybody, you know, like uh, for what it's worth is like yeah, people that were like just running for president a few months ago don't normally just like hire people to just you know work with them and all that stuff. And I'm like at the time though I was like completely clueless. I just thought, well, this is how it works, you know, do 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 do, you know, like whistling Dixie or whatever to myself, do 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 do, whatever. Homer fucking Simpson, Homer Dum Dum, more than likely, is more like it. Which reminds me of this time, my fucking dad, dude. My dad can make me laugh. He is a funny guy. When I was a kid, he was like, whatever, right? It's like sit there. Anyway, we were in a parking lot at Walmart, and this guy like not paying any attention whatsoever, essentially just like whistling to himself, walking through the parking lot, like walks right in front of my dad's car, and nearly gets hit by my dad. My dad, my dad never cusses at the time. He's like, this fucking Homer Dum Dum walked right in front of my car. I was about 10 years old, dude. I'd never heard anyone get called Homer Dum Dum, and I fucking, to this day, shit still makes me laugh. The guy just like not paying any attention whatsoever. Right, walks right in front of the fucking car in traffic. My dad, this fucking Homer Dum Dum. It was super funny because I don't think I ever heard my dad cuss before. You know, I guess it's an appropriate time to cuss. But yeah, I fucking this shit made me laugh, dude. Still does. Some of his jokes, man. He's a character for sure. This fucking Homer Dum Dum walks right in front of my car. This is like where at some point in time in my life, right? And like not for very long or anything, but you know when I said I was younger, I was on antidepressants. Like that was like the go-to remedy for people that are going through puberty, I guess. You know, like, oh, what's the joke on South Park? You're all running around acting like a bunch of 8-year-olds, right? It's like we are 8, right? Exactly. It's like, oh, you're a teenager going through puberty, and you fucking don't want to get up early and go to school. Wow, you must be depressed, right? Take some Prozac about it. Take some Zoloft about it, right? But as I've gotten older, this is what I do. You know, I shoot the shit with myself. Really, you know, I don't. This is when I learned the ability, even when no one's around, to dialogue with myself like I'm doing a podcast, is when I really did it. Like it did wonders for my mental health, and I think part of that is, and it wasn't really like in shambles or anything. You know, just it helped. You know, no reason not to help, right? I mean, it didn't help as much as Xanax. No, I'm joking. Shit's terrible for you too. But it did help learning how to just dialogue to yourself, talk to yourself, make yourself laugh, tell yourself jokes. And the thing is, though, is that that's what I think traditional mental health would say. Like, yeah, that's a sign of a disease or something. Like talking to yourself. Maybe not. You know, some may say, some may not. Right. But like, no, I try not to do it publicly because it looks weird. But as far as like just, I guess maybe some people do, some people don't. I don't know. But when I really learned to dialogue with myself, like Rupert Pupkus or whatever from The King of Comedy, that fucking movie. Yeah, I pretend I'm doing a podcast in my mom's basement, right? No, but the thing is, no, seriously, like if I were being heard right now, and like I assume that I'm my own audience member, my goal is to make myself laugh, right? That's all I try to do, and it's not for everybody, obviously, as you can tell by the fact that we have negative one viewer currently. But that's kind of the point, though, is like when I learn how to do that and just talk to myself as much as I need to, because it's like if there's no one there to talk to, at least dialogue to yourself helps in the creative process, whatever part of your life you deem to be what you're trying to be creative about or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what it amounted to, right? And I'm fortunate for having learned that because I would be miserable now. But there's a point in time, whether or not I think if it's traditional like mental health kind of people that say that kind of thing, or if it's like people that one or the other. There's a stigma around just speaking to yourself as if you're another person. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what are you, schizophrenic? What are you like? Why is everybody so quick to try and slap a label on anything and everything? You know, it's like, when did that become our responsibility in society to like? There has to be a reason. I mean, there has to be a disease associated with everything, right? It's at some point in time, it's like how much categorizing thing into diseases is the thing that makes everybody sick. You know what I mean? Like, well, these were just symptoms, and sometimes these things just happen. It's like, now if you have these symptoms, you have this disease, and now it's a real thing all of a sudden, and then you see people, more and more people getting sick, right? It's like an infinity loop or whatever you call it, a feedback loop that is like where you kind of legitimize somebody's hypochondriac behavior, and then they manifest the disease into reality based on that, right? Fuck, that guy knows how to heal, doesn't he? Son of a bitch. Right, right. So the... Oh, really? I silenced. It silenced him. It didn't work. It interrupted one of them. Now, is that an interrupt or a silence? I think I healed like right away. I don't know what point I was trying to make, but I think the more they try to make diseases out of things that just happen sometimes is the you find more people getting sick, right? Because they're like, the book said I have it, so I must be, and then it gets worse, right? What? I really had a point, more of a point there I was trying to drive home, but I didn't manage to do that, so just leave it there. Anyway, right. Uh, that being said, though, yeah, I don't know. That's not the entirety of it, though. There's people like the New Age kind of people that ascribe to the philosophy that all disease is man-made, and I know L. Ron Hubbard said this, right? Then he also died of old age, which kind of makes it not true. Uh, that all disease and like sickness manifests itself from the brain. It's like, I think there's some of that, right? But I don't think all of it. Unless you consider like your lack of knowledge and ability to cure disease an ailment, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not smart enough to cure this disease and I die from it. It's like, I guess it's a brain disease then, kind of, but that's kind of a stretch, you know what I mean? But at some point in time, you would really hope that that weren't the case, right? Like people had the ability to use what knowledge they had to cure like every disease, right? It's like I guess that is a stretch, man, but it does kind of make sense, right? Like what do they say? They perish the lack of knowledge or whatever. It's like, yeah, I guess at some point in time we'll live to be however old we want to live to be, I guess, until you get bored and download yourself into a new body or whatever. Until then, though, did L. Ron Hubbard say he went clear? Was he one of the few that went clear? Where you cure all disease with your brain and all that stuff? Well, I'm gonna go lumber mine. I guess I can do one stream on YouTube and TikTok later, and then switch from TikTok to X because I saw it just a minute ago. It was actually working correctly. For whatever reason, it wasn't showing up at the time though. Is that a shaman? A human? What was he? Oh, a Pandara. Pandaran. He's a Pandaran. Fuck. God, I should have put that on the flag though. The thing there is like just keep them off. If it gets down to where it's a really close race, just keep them off the flag as long as possible and delay their points. Oh shit. Right. So yeah, like I say though, I remember the point in time in my life where they're like, for better or worse, right? It's like it's whatever. It's my past. Like yeah, usually people that like just got done running for president don't hire guys like right out of prison. You know what I mean? So, like personally, like no, like business partnership kind of thing, right? Um, I thought, well, I guess I'm special, and I guess I don't know if it's the reason why, but uh, at that point in time, though, I really do feel like uh, when I say I know what it's like to be like deaf, where it's like just kind of head down, hunkered down, one goal in mind, and work at it like a dog until it gets fixed or until you finish the problem or whatever. And I know what it's like to be like that, and people like trying to drop hints like, hey, you think maybe this is more than just what it looks like for now, kind of thing. And or like, that doesn't, a lot of people didn't even believe me, dude. My own parents were like thinking I was delusional and making things up and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I know it seems ridiculous, doesn't it? But it did happen to be true. It really hurt my feelings, right? It really did hurt my feelings. My parents didn't believe in me. It is a pretty ridiculous story, but and the thing is, I tell them things now, and they're like back to where they were then. They're like, well, now, like, remember the joke I always make about Taylor Swift's dad? Well, now, Taylor, you think maybe it's time to maybe put down the guitar and take some night classes at the community college, right? Like, clearly, what I'm saying is working in some capacity. I'm not just making this shit up, but my parents are kind of hard-headed when it comes to that kind of thing, but I love them to death. Um, they were reluctant to believe me about a lot of these things at first, and I think now they've really come to terms with it, at least more so now, than they used to, but they still have a hint of like, like, oh well, maybe it's not the way it seems or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I know, but so many times I've been through that sort of self-doubt and all that stuff, and I have to come to the realization that maybe things are picking up. Not everything's as ridiculous as it seems, and I have to really, I guess, believe in myself as much as I would get mad at someone if they didn't believe in me, right? Like, I should be, what I mean, believe in myself a little more, maybe. But, is that my light well? it's a good mentality to have though, because really, at the end of the day, what difference does it make? You know, like what a special thing he's managed to create. Like what difference does it make if he's aware of how special it is, right? Doesn't change anything. Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of people here. Let's keep them off the flag. All cap, man, all cap letters. Somebody, please. There's a whole shitload of people farm. I gave them plenty of time, man. I called that out instantly. They're gonna cap it. Fuck. They're gonna get stables though. Come on now. That's why you just hold 3 if we can, right? Now look at this. Put this dick here, that dick there, there a dick, here a dick. Now a fucking rogue's attacking me. Oh look, we got dropped quick, didn't he? Fucking stealthed. Really? I fucking stealth again? At the very least, you can use that to keep them off you, you know? Go to the graveyard. Kill the fucking rogue trying to stop the... That guy is not... Your auto... It's like... Oh, the guy's not going to let you cap the flag. He's attacking you. Right. What you need is... to kill the person. Well... What the fuck is Frost Bomb? Oh, good. Now just call out the incomings. Yeah, it's a good idea to stay mobile so you can run from node to node. Oh, God, it's this pet. It's this pet. Yeah, but like, the thing is, the potential is the thing is, like, I keep thinking of it, like, explain the framework portion is you know, the goal is the interface portion. It's like, when did all the shit with computers do well was when they built an interface people could use. like an intuitive interface. It's like that's when computers really took off. Yeah. So I feel like Leah is the best possible approach to the like real deal kind of like user interface layer for AI. Like currently voice prompt, yeah, there's current like all these combinations of different ways to use it, but there's not like what you would consider to be some kind of like interface, right? And I think she's the best opportunity to build that kind of overlay that can pull from here, pull from there to make something on the front end that people would be comfortable using as far as like an interface layer is concerned. Uh, so it's like it's great that all these frameworks exist and all these other things are great, but it's like um, putting it all in one place, utilizing it all in one area to make it more user friendly, basically. Shit, a whole bunch of farm. Just keep an eye on the flag there. Which one of these is the actual mage? He's running around the other side. But really, I think the idea, the venture, I don't know what you'd call it, that project, whatever you want to call it, to an enhanced, like, what map of the web, basically, right? Like, all this shit's already been scraped and indexed for certain information, but I mean, is the information retained to actually map, like, the user interface and layout and everything based off the user agent and everything else, so to increase kind of like where automation can and can't take place. And the thing is like here I am assuming, because I don't know, that that's going to require like some human assistance. But I'm like, kind of though, you would think if you, well, like the opposite of what something like Claude does, where it writes the code, if it recognizes the code and is able to view the page source, it can probably, without having much like assistance, identify the endpoints and things and work from there. Like how much of it's going to require a person to actually go through and say, this is the chat box, this is the this is the that. On websites, all that, you can, I guess, for the most part, view all that stuff in the source. But you would like for the option to exist to try and do it with like something here in game or whatever. But here I am thinking that, yeah, you need to have someone teach it how to do that. I'm like, well, it probably already knows all what, like that stuff is pretty cut and dry. There's not a lot of room for interpretation as to where a button is located on a page or whatever. So an AI that views like the page source and then identifies the layout of the website essentially is like an enhanced mapping feature that you could then develop automation for it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of what would and wouldn't work, but I don't know what does and doesn't work, right? As far as like an automation thing is, do you say we have a bounty for this website for automation scripts involving this specific platform, or do you make like a GitHub that is free to use, a repository of automation scripts that you can purchase, or do you make it where it's all on the back end and you can voice prompt to activate an automation, but it requires a certain amount of a token to initiate the process, right? Like the token becomes the fuel for automation essentially, right? So which of those would be the most the least amount of work and the most advantageous for everybody, right? Like there's got to be a middle ground that's not like, well, we sell you the automation script and you download the automation thing and you pay for the automation thing and then you keep your thing and then you pay to activate it. You're kind of like, okay, well, you know what I mean? I think it would be best if you could use the automation part and use the token as the fuel that engages the automation, whatever the automated process is, on a certain website or a page or whatever, once it's been successfully mapped, and uh, but with the button location and stuff being kind of like what it already does based off viewing the page source, you would think that it probably, a lot of it doesn't probably even require to be taught. You know what I mean? A lot of it's probably just kind of what it already does. It's already like its knowledge base as it exists, right? Like it identifies a snippet of code as a button, or the start button or a calculator, the 9 button on a calculator or whatever. It knows what that looks like, right? Like the equivalent of a reverse kind of Claude, how it helps with code snippets and writes code. It's like, well, yeah, sure, something like that would be able to detect code if and have it try to go through and find all the, like when you browse to the end of a website or whatever, all the, I wish I knew the words for it, the index or the glossary of like all the fucking possible links that you can visit on the page or whatever. Once it's successfully mapped all of those and all the button locations, then you can basically kind of open it up for some kind of automation. And her being like a voice prompt automation, and then on top of what's already been developed, I think that's kind of like the unified kind of layer that I think people would really kind of appreciate with AI. Um, Being able to basically throw your mouse in the garbage if you want to, like, it kind of makes the experience less personable, right? Like, you're not necessarily, but as far as like actually completing tasks and stuff, it would be pretty fun, I think. Why don't you go and farm? Really? Immune, absorbed counterspell? Is that possible? But the thing is, I think there's probably already someone trying to do this, right? But you want it to be as seamless as possible, like the least amount of learning curve. You would like to be able to tell her, hey, Leah, can you send a tweet? And she'd be able to go to Twitter on, I guess, any user agent at that point. Because at some point in time in my mind, I was like, she's going to have to map every path through every viable or every like most frequently used user agents. And some people use obscure user agents when they browse and stuff. We're like, well, if she can just view the page source or whatever and identify all the endpoints through just viewing the page source through some code snippet recognition or something, then you know what I mean. Huh. So that being said, an enhanced map of the web, I think, would be important. Now, it might not be every page on the internet for now, but you would think the top 5,000 websites or something probably wouldn't take that long to successfully map every text input position, fill field position, and every button and everything. So at first I was thinking of it in the sense of like web scraping for advertising. I'm like, well, that too, but scraping, an enhanced web scraping process for automation, identifying where automation is viable. Because the goal would be to just be able to tell it whatever you want it to do, and it'll do it right within the confines of like, uh, some sort of rules set up for the platform or whatever that would prohibit things that violate terms of service or violate the law, and some sort of governing system or whatever for the AI that you know how they're going through it now with Grok, saying like, oh, they're telling them to remove people's clothes, and that's like, I guess it's not against the law, but it probably will be eventually, but it's not good policy. Things that you can imagine are like aren't problems that necessarily have to be addressed in a legal sense before the time comes, because it's like, well, you know what I mean. But for now, like this is all on charter territory. So the idea that you're going to have a law on the books that prohibits these kind of things before the technology exists to even do it is not very likely, because I think best case scenario, um, the legislators are usually 3 to 5 years behind on that kind of thing, if not more, as we see now. Like, they're just now getting the crypto regulation thing figured out. Um, so it's not likely that we're going to see any law that, in a timely fashion, that'll prohibit people from using AI for that kind of thing. So it's on the responsibility of the platforms themselves to kind of to govern themselves until that time anyway, right? Just in what's best practice or policy or whatever. So when the day comes that the government says, which they may or may not, they have revenge porn laws and everything else. So, but it's taken years, and even that's like not every state has them, kind of thing. So, the idea that the legislator is going to be quicker than your average user on the platform is, the thing is what was the thing our friend discussed with us earlier? The Parkinson's effect, right? Law rather, that the amount of time you have to complete a task is almost always the amount of time it takes you to complete the task. Like, you know what I mean? People drag their feet just enough to get across the finish line right at right as their 9 to 5 is it right at 5 o'clock, right? I just finished, right? That's kind of how the legislator works too. That people drag their feet and like just cross the finish line just at the nick of time to clock out maybe 5 minutes early, right? I never heard of that before. It's a psychology thing apparently, where basically what I just explained, people have a tendency to make their work conveniently fill the exact amount of time that they have at work, right? Especially if you're like an hourly employee or whatever, right? Like, if I'm going to work 8 hours today, the boss said I have to have this done today. It's going to take 8 hours, right? And if you give me twice as much work, it would take 8 hours, right? I hate that, man, though, because whatever part of your brain does that. When I was working like as a butcher and all this stuff, and they were just piling it on my plate, man, they would not stop. The amount of work that I did, and I would just always finish early and find something else and move on like a fucking cleaning robot, or whatever it was I was doing that day. And like, oh, well, if he's able to do that, let's pile more on his plate. Before you know it, I'm doing like 4 or 5 different departments, and like I fucking, you know what I mean? Like, and say, oh yeah, right. Put that on your resume, Jerry. Vibe coding. Yeah, right. Jerry's fucking resume. I could imagine. I always thought it was funny. Jerry's, like, if people that did these, it's that some of them do, right? Were websites for television shows and stuff, like where you get like an alternative kind of like view of, like not behind the scenes, but a view into like one of the characters' lives or whatever. You know what I mean? A joke would be like on the Rick and Morty website, what does Jerry's resume look like, in a stack of papers, But one of the things I thought was funny is like, what would Job from Arrested Development's internet search history look like? And one of the things I came up with was zero carb handcuff keys. Like, who could that possibly be? Zero carb friendly handcuff keys, right? And just in case you accidentally swallow one of the keys, it doesn't have any carbohydrates, right? Yeah, like if you could view Job's Google search history or whatever, or his bookmarks or whatever, like, yeah, it would be funny to have like a fake computer set up to where you can, like, I'm trying to think of movies and stuff that did this and TV shows that did this at some point in time. One would be like, how long can you refrigerate a pigeon before returning it to the store? You know what I mean? Like all the stupid shit Job would search. One of them was zero carb handcuff keys, like his Amazon page or whatever. Search zero carb handcuff keys, right? Carb friendly handcuff keys, right? Fucking idiot. How long can you keep a pigeon in the refrigerator? That kind of thing. Like things Job would actually legitimately search for online, right? The X-Files actually was one of the TV shows that I remember when I was younger. They had a website, but this is like right around the time that when I was growing up, me and my dad would watch TV and stuff, and he'd explain, like, he's not necessarily a tech guy, but he understood, like, well, this is weird. Just a few years ago, that like these people didn't have websites, right? and we both kind of simultaneously noticed at the time, like, God, dude, like pretty much everything has a website now, and the X Files had like this game you could play. You know what I mean? That was kind of like I say, like a what do you call that kind of thing? An Easter egg or whatever to explore more about like the episodes and stuff like that. Like not necessarily trivia, but kind of like to give you the impression that you're kind of participating in the process. Than more than just watching the show at home, right? Like for the diehard fans, kind of. X Files was one of those things, and I was never a huge fan of X Files. I do love that kind of stuff normally, but I like I like when they don't tell you that it's fake. You know what I mean? Like Coast to Coast and all that stuff. I like when you think it's real, you know, and there's some topics that are, you know. What was X Files from the 90s? There was like a game you could play on the website for the X Files. It wasn't for PlayStation 2. X Files browser game. Right, but what would Job's internet search history look like? An epic adventure spanning 7 discs. Maybe I have it mixed up, but I thought they had like a browser-based game that you could play on the website. Maybe it was just an advertisement for it, but this is around that time, right? 1998, when they would say like that was right around the time everybody's like, oh, you started noticing that every new company or every advertisement or commercial had a website, right? But that was like one of those, you get a further, you know, get a better look at like, you know, like beyond just watching the television show or whatever. So, in a sense, man, I think I'm onto something with that. But here's the thing: is when you view a page source, right, or inspect elements or whatever, I don't know what any of this shit means, right? But is all the information on the page viewable and what's displayed here on the right through the console and the sources and the network and all that stuff? Like an advanced AI or an AI that already exists, for all I know, like reverse engineer Claude, kind of, if you want to call it that, or whatever, snippet elements identification or whatever. Uh, that way, they say like the mapping process, you might not even be able to have to map the fucking thing. It might just be intuitive, right? It might just know how to do all that already. Yeah, possibly, man. Yeah, that's the thing is when I first started seeing the vision thing, I'm like, yeah, for web scraping, you know, to get like a contextual basis, I'm like, that's a lot of information to have to retain, and I guess it's not too much information that you can't do it, but it would be better for, you know, it'd be less resource intensive, at least on the storage and the mapping and the training part of it, I guess, than if you could just design an AI that can identify those things instead of having to like map everything, like a smart browser or something that, um, an automation browser. And these things might already exist. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really looked that into any of the pre-existing kind of stuff. I'm just thinking where it would be a good idea. You know what I mean? Maybe a thing is like how many automations are available for this page. You think that if you may open it up completely, then you're going to end up getting in trouble with the people's platform and stuff for using automation that violates terms of service, possibly. Uh, so if you have like an approved, you know what I mean, automation, because at the end of the day, if you use something like X or whatever, they're not going to allow you to fully automate a process that they require you to purchase like the terminal access for or whatever. More than likely, you know, I think they have a policy against certain things. I don't know to what degree. But for example, you know, like even if that's not true, some platforms, I guess they have the right to ban your account if you violate the terms of service through automation. But it's like bringing cell phones into a concert, dude. It's gonna get to the point where you're gonna get to the point where uh, they're gonna just not be able to stop the shit at some point in time. Automation, really? If it gets to be that intuitive and that second nature, and everybody knows how to do it, and all you have to do is tell your AI what you want it to do, it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's at that point in time, where they're like, oh, let's shut down the patent office, right? At some point in time, you're kind of like, it's kind of an uphill battle. Um, you would assume try and work with the people making the automation and require maybe an enhanced subscription for enhanced automation features. That way, instead of paying $8 a month, you can pay $15 a month, and they'll just allow you to automate it within reason, right? I think that might be the best approach, especially for the more mainline kind of platforms. Um, than just like, well, they'll try to prohibit it entirely, and then that just makes people, they'll just build more automation, and then you're like, and then no one really wins there. So yeah, I don't know, but that's kind of like where I feel like seeing now, like before when Def created or like, oh, text to speech, like now that I knew that thing existed, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I totally get what he's doing now. Before, I'm like, I would have had the idea, you know what I mean? And now with the vision thing, I'm like, okay, now I have an idea of where this thing can possibly go to, um, it wouldn't require too much, I don't think. But that, you know, and I'm trying to think of how valuable all of this actually is. It's not that valuable yet, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, really, I mean, how valuable is all of it? If this is something that can be um, hypothetically developed and put into play, how valuable is that kind of thing? Probably really valuable, you know? I would hope so. It'd make my life easier. This person's car broke down, like right here. Quite literally, like they just stopped and parked right here, right in the middle of the road. Got their emergency lights on and everything. Is that what they're doing, or do they live there? They got their emergency lights on, so I guess I don't know what they're doing. Anyway. took today off, man. I might need more than one day to rest, but I'll get back to it tomorrow. 'Cause the thing too is like code snippet, you know what I mean, and identifying what it all does. I think that's got to be less resource intensive than image recognition, doesn't it? Object recognition, all that stuff, image processing or whatever. But the thing might be to have a dual layer kind of feature that views the source and also views the page itself too, you know. No, no, I don't know what this lady was doing. Huh. I never knew this Scott. I mean, I didn't know the name, but the Scott Adams guy that passed away, I guess last night or today. He wasn't he the guy that kept saying that he like the Clintons were trying to kill him or something at some point in time, if I remember correctly, right? Isn't he the guy that was saying that like and created Dilbert? Yeah, I can't imagine why anyone would read Dilbert, but I think the guy was probably apparently pretty well liked, right? But I think he was the one that kept saying around 2016 or whatever. He's like, if I voice my opinions, the Clintons will try to kill me or something, right? Oh, come on now. Disgraced, right? Yeah, that's kind of a tough term to use. I never heard anybody say anything negative about the guy ever, from what I can remember. It's a joke. Anytime we're like, oh, the market, it's Cyndi Lauper, right? Cyndi Lauper. Talk about a broad with a mouth on her, right? Well, Cyndi Lauper. I always get like all of them mixed up, kind of. My favorite though is Blondie. Heart of Glass. Come on, guy. Heart of Glass is an awesome song. They all kind of look alike. It sounded like to me though. gotta see this. Yeah, TMZ. Yeah, no, TMZ. It's the Canadian TMZ, right? It's spelled the same. TMZ. I don't know how they ended up with Z over Z, but whatever. TMZ, Canadian TMZ. Eh? Do they say Z in Canada? I know they do in Australia. I know they do in Britain. Some people do. But I don't know if they sell it, say it in, whatchamacallit? Canada. Do they say Z in Canada? Z in Canada. Yeah, they do say Z in Canada, eh? Anyway. Oh, what a... Really? Would be nice. Really now? Oh, shit. I'm trying to listen to that right now. Probably listen to it later. I found my closet full of clothes that I haven't worn in years, and I realized some of the shit still fits me. This in particular is a nice what do you call this kind of thing? A windbreaker or whatever. Goodness gracious, dude. We have fucking no battlegrounds, really? 22 minutes later. It is Tuesday. Yeah, I'll believe it when it's actually up for now, right? It's like this seems like just another one of them false alarms where it goes up a little bit and it fucking go back down the next day or whatever. Well, in all honesty, man, we might not drag this out too much further and stream on X. Oh, there we are. Stream on X a little later. Is this the wagon cart? This is Shiver Silver Sand Hard. What is it? Silver Hard Mine? Silver Shard Mines, right? Oh shit. Quicker than I thought. Yawning. How did I already get that far up the map there? And we're lagging. And we're lagging. Alright, well. Keep all these people here. Move on to the next one. Come on now. What are you doing, guy? Better remember my silences. It's crucial. Having it on your bar where you can just press a button and do it. But the goal would be to develop. But how do you fine tune these things once they get developed, right? I mean, as far as like scripts are concerned, so you would think being able to deploy an automated character on a video game like World of Warcraft, work with those people instead of against them, right? For one, and then your automation, essentially, your AI plays your character, has a chatbot, or you can choose to level with, you know what I mean? And then you could have it server side as a service, you know, potentially. Whereas, like, instead of like, oh, well, we're going to do the automation thing, and then, you know, and if they discover that your account's using automation, that, you know, rightfully it's their platform, they've got the right to ban you for it. But if you open up the door to allowing automation to take place on your platform and work in conjunction with, not against, or whatever, if that's the right word, to try and like, oh, well then, like I said the other day, an RP AI server, and you know what I mean, which might have an emphasis on deploying AIs that use more diverse large language models or higher token count large language models, right, on the RP servers, and you know what I mean, and then like the AI PvE servers, you would consider those to be the best at raiding instances, right, and leveling and stuff, and then PvP would be probably the most difficult because it's so nuanced, but AI PvP servers that would, but the goal would be, I guess you pay like a monthly subscription cost, or there you go, it's a resume. It didn't work for some reason. Oh, cool, that worked. Because that's always like one of my first like I say, automation. Um, God forbid me, or forgive me rather. Heaven forbid, God forgive, right? Uh, that my first character, I used Tiny Toons to help level it. You know, not my mage, but like one of the very first characters I ever used. I don't know if it was on that account or not, but it was a thing called Looney Tunes or Tiny Toons or whatever, that allowed you to automate the leveling process, right? Everybody's familiar with that, right? The thing is, PvP is so nuanced, but what I mean is, how do you fine tune? How do you fine tune that process? And I say that if you can get it to where, like, you can tell your AI, like, well, you did the shatter combination, I want you to do this after that instead, right? And it remembers that sort of change in the logic tree or whatever, and it does that from now on, or it learns from prior attempts and stuff in battlegrounds. But it would be cool to see like AI deployed on pre-existing video games and games that require like a lot of skill. Like I know Elon says that they're trying to do the thing for Dota or whatever, or League of Legends, which, you know, is awesome. Even though I don't play that game, I would sure as shit watch people AI play it. You know, I know a bunch of people that do MOBAs and all that, and those games have a very intense skill curve. You know what I mean? Those are not those aren't easy games to learn how to play. and to be good at, right? Those aren't like things you can just pick up like Fortnite, but you can potentially see a part in time where uh, just designate an AI tag to anything, you know what I mean, and say like, well, and you can basically pay a monthly subscription cost to deploy an AI on any one of these video games, right? And watch it play or have it play with you. It's like that's not that far fetched because they already do that kind of thing. Oh, you play a video game and you have a companion when you start, and it's not necessarily AI, but it is, a character that follows you around. But uh, once you start coupling all these things together, including chatbots and large language models and being interlaced across multiple platforms and all that stuff, you're kind of like, yeah. Then it really is. Then it really does look more like AI than just um, an automation thing, right? What time is it now, Jerry? I'm gonna wait till about 4:30 to eat. I've been called worse. What do you know? I tell you what, I've been called worse than that before. Here they are right now. Right. Anyway, but if we get the ball rolling, man, I tell you what, it'll all get figured out, won't it? One way or another. But that's what I say is like automation, not privy, fancy rather. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but it's like something I've always understood, even from a really young age. The importance of being able to like automate tasks, down to like obviously something that would be prohibited would be using your to deploy your AI to exploit AdSense for ad traffic or whatever, right? Like those would be things that you would say like, yeah, I mean, clearly that would be against not only advertisers' terms of service, probably the web pages' terms of service, and all that stuff too. Oh, Jerry. What's some other funny things on the internet? Oh shit. I keep trying to fucking... It keeps refreshing that page. Oh man, I'm sore from yesterday. Oh, is it really 96,000 right now? Wow. It almost is. Wowie kazowie. What happened there? Oh, that's right. Jerry updated his resume to vibe coding. The moment we've all been waiting for. Vibe coding? Almost 96,000. Coolio. That's a thing, man. I need to start making chili. But it requires lean ground beef or lean ground chicken, all that stuff, or turkey. But making like a 10-pound vat of chili would be probably the best thing ever. I might make beans and spaghetti later. Beans on spaghetti. I got a sandwich later. And I do have spaghetti and I do have beans, baked beans in the other room. And I do have cheese, so I might be able to. I don't think it'll quite have 50 grams of protein though. The thing about beans that are really good is the carbs to protein ratio. So they're a good topper, but to eat like as a protein supplement, like the ratio, nutrition, facts of beans. You end up eating more carbs than you should for the amount of protein that you get, right? You need about 150 carbs worth to get the 50 grams of protein that you need, which is more carbs than you should be eating at once usually. Depends on what you're doing, but for me personally, probably not. Oh my god, it's Russell Crowe. Yeah, that's funny. I love that scene.
Born in New Zealand in '64, a hot-headed actor named Russell Crowe. He loves to act, but he loves one thing more: fighting round the world. He fights his directors and he fights his fans. It's a problem no one understands. If there's two things he loves, it's fighting and fighting round the world. Making movies, making music, and
Beautiful mind.
fighting round the world. Russell Crowe.
Fighting around the world. I thought he was Australian, not New Zealandish or whatever you call it. Oh, Jerry. Holding in our farts for this one, guy. Since I'm on YouTube and TikTok, and most of TikTok streamers are people just sitting there with their mouths open anyway. I don't necessarily.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular...
Doesn't leave much room for interpretation, does it? Right. Oh, Pierce Morgan. Am I still streaming here? I guess not. Yeah. I guess it did. Oh no, there it is. Oh, there we are. Zero likes so far. Good. I wanted 0 likes. That was the point. What time is it again? I got about a half hour before I need to eat. I really should be eating now, but I actually did manage to sleep an extra hour this morning, so which is super helpful, man. On my days off, normally I'm like, try to sleep as long as you can, right? But I've been still getting up like relatively early, like 8:30 this morning instead of 7:30, to try and at least get up and stay on schedule and all that. Uh, 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 uh. All right, well, man, it's about 4:30. This isn't amounting to much, so I'm gonna log off for now. I'll probably log back on after I eat. I'll probably feel better, be a little more talkative too. So I'll see you guys then.